Onions, onions, la la la. Onions, onions, ha ha ha. Do 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 do.
Hello and welcome to Weave Your Web Revived. I am your host, Tor James Faulkner. Blessed Samhain and happy Halloween. This is the spooky Spesh. This is to celebrate, of course, Halloween, but also to celebrate one whole year since Weave Your Web was revived. So I hope you join me in the spooky atmosphere. This episode, there's going to be a paranormal story from the news, and then three spooky stories. So get settled in, get a nice hot drink, and let's get on with it. And as always, I've not read the stories beforehand, so I'm going to be reacting and feeling spooked along with you. So a paranormal story from the news is from Wales Online, and the headline reads, I visited a Welsh paranormal museum, and as a non-believer, what I saw left me spooked. From tables taken from haunted pubs to dolls, and Ouija boards, you'll find yourself amazed by what the museum has to offer. And there's a picture of a spooky doll, a massive picture of a spooky doll, with a sign that says, item under observation. What is it with this podcast and attracting stuff to do with spooky dolls? Anyway, the story reads, as a child, I was terrified of ghosts, demons, and everything paranormal. So like any other sane person who claims they've grown up, I decided to visit a paranormal museum. And I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little scared. However, the people behind Carruthers Roton's Museum of Paranormal and Spirituality, please get in touch if I'm saying that wrong, Laura Roughton and her husband Eric Roughton made sure that it was an amazing and informative journey. Based in Carruthers Pinuel Chapel, again, apologies if I'm mispronouncing all these lovely words, the museum draws life from its rich and paranormal history. According to Laura, the building dates back to 1851, but was renovated 1909 to fit around 800 people in the building. And the reason behind that was that something very special is said to have taken place here. She said, in the end of the 19th century, in 1897, a new reverend arrives from the States, W.C. Jones, and en route to Carruthers, he had what is recorded as a baptism of power. So, the Holy Spirit is said to have come into him in this very divine and inspirational thing that actually led to him supposedly receiving a miracle healing for some medical condition he had. And then, when he was here at Penwyfan, he went on and faith healed. So that was until 1904, and it's said that lots of miracles and supernatural manifestations took place here. And there's a picture of Laura and her husband here. They look familiar, actually. I wonder if we've crossed paths. Her husband, Eric, explained that every seat in the chapel is made so that the people have a view of the altar because they came to see something. She added, so we don't know exactly what it is they saw, but by the time Reverend Jones left, it was recorded in the local press that the congregation here didn't bother going to doctors when they were ill. Wow. They came here instead. Wow. That's incredible. Mysterious. However, it is not just the site itself that alludes to the supernatural, but the different exhibitions that the couple have in place at the museum. Several of them being said to have recorded paranormal activity. The couple took me on a tour of the museum, and what I saw left me amazed. And there's a bust of Archangel Michael pictured with peacock feathers. I nearly said pecan feathers. Feathers made of pecan nuts would be something, eh? And there's some beautiful pictures pictured. At the start of the tour, you see an unusual figure of Archangel Michael, all clad in white. This figure depicts him with peacock feathers, not pecans, which Laura explains was a common feature in 10th and 11th centuries. This is not where the unusual ends. In the ground floor of the chapel, you go around and see many fascinating objects from different periods in time that deal with the paranormal. Without revealing too much, expect to be amazed by haunted tarot cards, early exorcism kits, the devil's handwriting, and many more. This sounds really, really excellent. Actually, I would love to go and visit this place. The room I found the most fascinating led me upstairs, and this is where things really started getting interesting. After the first leg of the tour, you are taken upstairs where you can experience Victorian seance right at the end of 2024. That's so cool. I want to go and experience a Victorian seance. And there's, lovely pictures, lovely pictures of all the things. If you found yourself in the middle of this room at night, you will most likely lose your marbles. I don't have many marbles to start with, to be honest. And rightly so. The room is filled with artifacts that were used in Victorian times for seances. You can see several Ouija boards, Victorian mourning dresses, less than pleasant dolls, again with the dolls, and objects from one of the bloodiest battle sites in World War I. You will also learn a little about seances, how they were done, and if you dare even attempt one. I would attempt one. And again, there's lots of lovely pictures of the things around this room, the Ouija boards and stuff. Lovely big candles, all kinds of bits and pieces. The artifacts that fascinated me the most were the Ouija boards. Yeah, I'd love to poke around those too. That adorned the top of the room's walls, dating back to the 1940s. Some of these are said to have exhibited paranormal activity. This article is so exciting. I really want to go and visit this place. I wasn't expecting to be so excited reading this. One of these was made from the table of the Albion Inn, a pub that was considered haunted. On the theme of artifacts from haunted houses, the museum also displays 2 pieces of wood that came from the house from the infamous Amityville horror case. Oh my goodness. On the third leg of the tour, you are taken to a room with different modern day instruments that have now been modified to use in paranormal investigations. If you wish, you can also participate in an experiment for remote viewing. Oh, that's so cool. It involves you looking at an envelope and drawing or writing what you see, or what you think you see in the envelope. I gave it a go, but as far as clairvoyance goes, I'm not the best. Takes practice. Again, more spooky dolls. In the pictures. For the bravest of all, though, you can go to the tour final stop, where you can see some of the museum's most haunted or paranormal objects. The room consists of dolls, nails, desks, and voodoo figurines, Victorian mourning dresses, and objects related to the infamous British occultist Aleister Crowley. For those brave enough to explore the museum or experience seances, you can book a guided tour through the museum's website. The museum is also offering a Halloween event on October 31st, which will be today when you're listening to this, so you may have missed this, I apologise, which includes a tour, after dark vigil, and more. Even if you are not a firm believer in the paranormal like me, you might still find the museum worth it, as it features a lot of historical objects and trivia about the paranormal that would keep you entertained. So this sounds absolutely fascinating. I was not expecting this article to be as exciting as that. You know, I was looking for a paranormal article to feature on the show, and this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. So this is a place where you can go and experience all these paranormal objects, feel, you know, the haunted chapel, maybe even experience some healing if, you know, the Reverend's energy is lingering there. Isn't that so cool? I love that article. Thank you, Wales Online, for that amazing article. And I'll see you after this break for our scary stories.
I don't like rain or snow or hail, Moby Dick, that great white whale, but I love onions. I don't like shoes that pinch your toes, or people who squirt you with a garden hose, but I love onions. Onions, onions, la la la. Onions, onions, ha ha ha. Do 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 do. Onions, onions, la la la. Onions, onions, ha ha ha. Do 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 do.
Hey, I'm Inbal. Our essential oil blends at Inbal's Apothecary Magical Oils are created by witches for witches. Hand blended in the New Forest and blessed personally by me. They're dermal grade magical oils for all your ritual and wellness needs.
Welcome back to Weave Your Web Revived. I'm still Tor, and this is still the spooky Spesh. Our first scary story is called Student Chainsaw Nurses. I'm going to repeat that. Student Chainsaw Nurses. Now, already, my brain is conjuring up images of Silent Hill, and goodness knows what else. The story starts. Detective Scott zoomed in on the files he had gathered that outlined how to enter the abandoned asylum from the entrance beside the meat packing plant sign. The grounds of the old asylum still had their old wrought iron gates surrounding them majestically. It could have passed for a public park even, except part of the asylum had been sold off and turned into a meat packing plant. Detective Scott took in the grisly industrial nature of it all. He felt awakened in his Adidas tracksuit, not sponsored, but he was trying to pass as a uni student and knew that would help him look the right age. Would it? Scott had answered the ad. He told the group of nurses he was looking for some extra cash and that he'd like to take part in their clinical trial. After a series of grueling questions, he seemed to convince them he was desperate for the cash and he really needed to sell his kidney. His research had led him to the reality. St. Verity's Asylum had become a nexus for organ trafficking. As Detective Scott approached the waiting room, he glanced in the mirror to make sure he gave off the air of looking like a poor student. I don't think a poor student can afford Adidas tracksuits. Last I checked, they were pretty pricey. He left one of his shoes unlaced for effect and signed himself in. His intel had reports of several nurses that had formed a cult. Yeah, my brain is going to Silent Hill again. An organisation with dark rituals tied to the hospital's profit from illicit organ sales. Mammy, his boss told him. Mammy is the organiser, an informant. Let us know that's her name. Detective Scott listened for her. The sound of distant laughter echoed, followed by a high-pitched scream. Scott's eyes darted towards the sound. He patted his gun holster to be sure it was in its place and crept along the wall, down the hallway towards the sound, clinging tightly to his phone for its flashlight. The hallways were growing darker and dingier with each turn. Emerging into an operating room, he stopped to pause. He caught sight of strange shapes taped to the wall, eerie dolls. Again with the dolls. Their eyes glistening as they seemed to watch him, adorned the room. He was pondering if these were actually grim trophies of Mammy's cult sacrifices, when he noticed a glistening chainsaw hung on the wall. Suddenly, the door swung open and in charged the nurse with a chainsaw. She was tall and slender, dressed in an outdated nurse's uniform that hugged her frame too tightly. Her eyes searched the room, but Detective Scott had successfully ducked and hid himself behind the operating tables. "You shouldn't be here, Detective," she crooned. Revving up the chainsaw, the raw, brutal growl rung out. Oil and smoke flung from the chainsaw. "This place is far too dangerous for someone like you," she screamed above the buzzing. She revved the engine in whirs. Detective Scott could see her feet coming for him. She flung under the table a little further out of her reach and lay as still as he could. "Come out now, Detective Scott. Come meet Mammy. You need to be repurposed." Scott's mind raced. He jumped up and took aim at her with his gun. "You're trafficking organs," he said as he brought the gun up to his eye to take his best shot at her thigh. He only intended to sting her, to make her go down. Mammy laughed as the bullet ricocheted off her bulletproof armor. She turned the chainsaw off, almost as if she knew leisure was all hers. "The people that come here, they become part of something so much bigger than themselves, you see. Detective, every scream, every lost life is a celebration, and we..." She stepped closer, her intent evident. "We know just how to give the gift of life to others. Do you understand?" But a sudden urge of adrenaline. Scott turned to flee. Mammy lunged as she pulled the chainsaw, roaring to life. She was quick on his tail. She swung it in menacing arcs. He barely dodged, his heart pounding in rhythm with the machine's growl. He ran for his life, his instincts screaming at him to escape. The hallways of St. Verity's twisted around him, each turn revealing new horrors, a flicker of knives cutting patients open in the room's shadows, ghostly figures that seemed to be pushing carts of dead bodies down the hallway, doors that had once held the promise of mental healing now led to rooms filled with grotesque, macabre displays of butchery. The more he searched for an exit, the more he realized there was no way out but through the meat packing plant. Did you think you could escape? Mammy's voice echoed. Now multiple student nurses had grabbed their chainsaws out of the operating room to chase Detective Scott, the intruder. He could smell the smoke of their chainsaws and the inhuman choir of female voices leering and screaming for his demise. He stumbled, running into the boiler room, but it felt as if shadows themselves were creeping into his mind, distorting his senses. He tripped on wiring taped to the floor. Mammy towered above him, oil spittle dripping off her hot, revving chainsaw. "Please," he gasped, pulling on her leg, desperate for her charity. "I will do anything you want." "I will liberate." She twirled the chainsaw, dancing happily above her head. She kicked his head to the ground and put her shoe on his cheek. It was clear this was a joyous performance for her, set to the rhythm of terror. "I will free you from the constraints of this life." I wonder if that was meant to be put her shoe on his neck. Anyway. She pushed his head down, exposing the nape of his neck. He twisted, all vulnerable. "You don't want to be trapped in this mundane life, detective, do you? You want to soar with us, don't you?" In a flash of terror, Scott glimpsed up. A whole coven of student nurses now stood in a circle around him, revving their chainsaws in unison, smiling wickedly. The truth hit Detective Scott. The dolls in the operating rooms, they weren't just gruesome decorations. They were effigies of the people that had died, transformed into relics for their indulgence. "If you put his neck this way, the vein's going to gush blood all over us, Mammy," one of the nurses complained. A whir of chainsaws filled Detective Scott's head. The last words shattered through him as Mammy, in that instant, with fear coursing through his veins, Scott spurted all over the room. "This one needs an apple in his mouth, don't you think?" one of the student nurses asked, laughing.
Hey, I'm Inbal. Our essential oil blends at Inbal's Apothecary Magical Oils are created by witches for witches. Hand blended in the New Forest and blessed personally by me. They're dermal grade magical oils for all your ritual and wellness needs.
Our next story is called "I Shouldn't Have Robbed the House." I was inside the master bedroom when I heard the garage open and a car go in. I looked at my friend Victor as we realised the couple came home early. We hadn't expected that. "Put everything back," Victor whispered to me. We took all the watches, tablets, money, and anything we took back exactly as we found them. I heard the couple speaking downstairs, but couldn't make out anything. After we put everything back, Victor told me to follow him. He pulled down the scuttle attic, trying to do as little noise as he could. When we got up, he closed it, and we were inside the attic. Ooh. It had a few small windows that brought in sunlight, and the attic was empty, except for a few boxes. We stood there for a minute, waiting to see if we could hear them. We didn't really hear anything, but we didn't hear them leave either. The attic was hot, and it didn't help we were wearing warm clothes, gloves, and baseball caps. "Let's try to leave," Victor whispered. We got down the attic stairs and tiptoed away. Victor opened the door quietly and quickly shut it. "The man is here," Victor said. I asked, "What is he doing?" And Victor said, "He's going into the child's room." When I first entered the kids' room a few minutes before the couple arrived, I was shocked. Through spying on them for the past week, to know their routine, I never saw their daughter. At least I assumed the child is a daughter based off the decoration of the room. You should never assume. "Did you see the kid at all?" I asked. Victor shook his head. "Maybe she's in a boarding school or camp or something." Victor made a guess. We heard the man walk downstairs, and we heard a female, his wife, I assumed. "Everything is ready." We heard 2 pairs of footsteps walk into the basement. Me and Victor assumed everything was fine and tiptoed downstairs. Victor tried to open the door, but it was locked. When we tried to find another exit, we heard a saw down the basement. A violent scream. It sounded like a man was getting cut. Me and Victor froze. The screaming didn't stop. The muffled screaming kept going on. Me and Victor walked to a window to open it. When I tried to open it, I couldn't. Victor whispered, "Leave it to me." When he tried, he couldn't either. We noticed a small iron mechanism on the window, a window latch. We went from one window to another as the screaming continued. Suddenly, Victor accidentally hit a small table. It lifted a little before crashing down, making a large thud. The saw stopped. We froze in place. But then we heard 2 pairs of footsteps coming upstairs. Victor told me to follow him, and I did. We got to the kitchen and hid inside the pantry. We heard the basement door open. The man said, "Is someone here? I'll call the police." I didn't know whether or not he'll do it, considering what we heard in the basement. Suddenly the woman's voice said, "Did more of them follow us?" A worry in her voice. The man said, "No one's coming. Let's check around." There, me and Victor were, hiding again. We didn't plan on hurting anyone, just a few items stolen, but now violence might be unavoidable. After a few minutes, Victor opened the pantry door. Me and him peeked outside and saw the wife, her hands covered in blood. And she was washing them. Me and Victor got worried. We were in a house with serial killers. Suddenly, a guy with a tank top and underwear only came into the room. He was covered in blood and missing his hands. When the woman noticed him screaming, the man, completely oblivious, asked her for help. She took out a big kitchen knife and started stabbing him repeatedly until he died. The husband ran into the room. He confronted her and she asked, "How'd he escape?" The man said, "I don't know. I'll check if the other escaped." As he left, me and Victor knew we had to escape. Who knows what they tried to do if they caught us. Victor took a large can of beans and told me to follow his lead. We went outside the pantry and went next to the woman. When she noticed us, she was about to scream when Victor hit her in the head. Her skin split open. A few seconds later, she was about to scream again when Victor hit her again and again and again until she died, blood covering half her face. Me and Victor ran to escape, not caring about being quiet anymore. When we got to the garage door, it was locked. "Damn it," said Victor. We ran to the dining room. Victor told me, "Break the window." I took a chair and started hitting the window. It broke, and I thought it was all over until I heard the man's footsteps running up from the basement. Victor whispered, "I'll get him, just stay there." As he hid behind the door, the man came with a machete. He lunged at me, but Victor reacted quickly and hit him in the back of the head. He fell on the broken pieces of glass from the window. When he pulled himself up, he collapsed almost instantly. He was dead. Victor said, "Let's go get the guy downstairs," and I nodded. We ran down to the basement and saw sheeted hospital curtains and hospital beds. On one of them, there was lots of blood and built-in restraints. I guess the man earlier managed to squeeze through. We saw 2 large dog cages. One was empty, while the other had the other man inside. He had long, straggly hair and an average body build. He had his mouth covered in silver duct tape, and his hands were also taped together. He looked at us with fearful, pleading eyes. "We're here to rescue you," I said. I noticed the lock on the cage. The man pointed at his pocket and upstairs. Victor ran upstairs and came down with the keys. Apparently, they were in the husband's pocket. When we freed him and cut off all of the duct tape with scissors, Victor said, "If you can call the police, we were never here, all right?" The man thought for a moment. He would have to take the blame for the 2 kills, but it was self-defense, right? The man said, "I think it's best if I just leave." Me and Victor nodded. We went back upstairs, and the keys could also open the front door. When we left, the man thanked us and ran, while me and Victor took our car that was a couple of blocks away and drove home. We turned on the news, but we knew it would be a while before anyone found them. Suddenly, the newsman said, "Today marks the 1-year anniversary of Luna's kidnapping." They show a picture of a young girl. The newsman said, This is a video from her parents, Jason and Mariah." They show the 2 people, the same people that owned the house we were just in, and killed them. In the video, the 2 said, "Whoever took her, if you're seeing this, please give us our daughter. She's all we want. We'll give you anything." Then the newsman said, "Here's the pictures of the 2 suspects." They showed the guy we saw the woman kill in the kitchen, and the man we just freed. The newsman said, "They're both registered sex offenders. If you see them, report it to the police immediately." Victor threw up. "What have we done?" I shouted. "What the hell have we done?"
Hey, I'm Inbal. Our essential oil blends at Inbal's Apothecary Magical Oils are created by witches for witches. Hand blended in the New Forest and blessed personally by me. They're dermal grade magical oils for all your ritual and wellness needs.
That was a bit of a nasty twist at the end there, wasn't it? That was really... Ooh, that made my skin absolutely crawl. It made my skin absolutely crawl, that twist at the end there. One story left of the spooky Spesh, and this one is called The Unseen Visitor, My Haunted House Experience. I've always been a skeptic when it comes to ghosts and the paranormal. I never really believed in any of that, until about 4 months ago. Since then, things have been happening in my house that I can't explain, and they've gotten progressively worse over time. It all started one quiet night in June. I was home alone, relaxing and watching TV when I heard footsteps upstairs. At first I thought it might be the neighbours or something harmless, but the sound was clear, slow, heavy footsteps moving directly above me. I muted the TV to listen, but as soon as I did, the sound stopped. I brushed it off, assuming the house was just creaking as usual. A week later, I was lying in bed when I heard the footsteps again. This time, coming down the stairs. I froze, my heart pounding. But when I checked, nothing was there. I told myself it was nothing, but I was starting to feel uneasy. Around mid-July, things took a turn for the worse. One morning, I woke up to find every door in the house wide open. The front door, the back door, even all the cupboards and drawers in the kitchen. It was like someone had walked through and opened everything. The weird part was that my security system hadn't gone off, and there was no signs of a break-in. Then came the cold spots. No matter how warm it was outside, there were specific areas in the house that felt like ice. The hallway upstairs became especially bad. Every time I walked through it, I'd get chills. By the end of the month, mold started creeping in. First, just in the hallway, but eventually it spread to other parts of the house. The dampness came with it, and soon the walls felt clammy to the touch. The strange thing is, there were no leaks, no explanations for why it was happening so suddenly. In early August, the house itself seemed to start falling apart. Tiles from the roof began to come loose, and my windows started cracking for no reason. I had a window replaced twice, but within days it would be broken again. The cold feeling in the house had become unbearable by this point, like there was something lurking in the air, watching. Then I began to notice strange things moving around the house. My mirrors, for example, kept being moved. I'd find them at different angles, facing odd directions, even though I hadn't touched them. It was subtle at first, but after it kept happening. I couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was responsible. In September, I started having dreams. In the first one, I was lying in bed, paralysed, while a tall, shadowy figure stood at the foot of my bed, watching me. Its presence was suffocating. It didn't move, didn't make a sound, but I felt its eyes on me, as if it was waiting for something. I tried to scream, but I couldn't make a sound. I woke up drenched in sweat, my chest tight with fear. From there, the dreams became more frequent and disturbing. I dreamt of my house being engulfed in flames, the smoke suffocating me as I struggled to find a way out. The worst one was seeing my dad get into a car accident. I could see it in horrifying detail, the crash happening right in front of me. The next day, my dad and I actually got into a minor car accident. Nothing serious, but it was too eerie to ignore. The cold spots worsened as the months went on. The mould became more aggressive, creeping up the walls, and the dampness spread until it seemed like the whole house was falling apart. My roof tiles continued to loosen and fall, and my windows kept breaking. It got to the point where I stopped bothering to repair them. Something strange was happening here, and no amount of repairs could fix it. By October, I couldn't take it anymore. My mirrors were still being moved, my house felt like it was rotting from the inside out. And the whispers, those awful whispers, had started up at night. It was as if they were coming from the walls themselves, just loud enough to be heard, but too soft to understand. I decided to set my phone to record audio while I slept. The next morning, I listened to the recording, and there it was, soft whispers, clear as day. And then, at the end of the recording, there was a deep, guttural growl that sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't explain it, and I didn't want to hear it again. But here's the twist. This is all fake. None of this actually happened to me. I made it all up as a bit of fun to see how creative I could get with a spooky story. Hope you enjoyed the rides. That's funny. That's a funny twist. I like a funny twist. If you have a spooky paranormal story, fake or one that you've written, please send them in. The contact information for the show will be in and around wherever you're watching this. Alternatively, you can go to torjamesfaulkner.com. That's torjamesfaulkner.com. Use the contact form. Let me know that it's for Weave Your Web, and I'll read it out on the show. You can also get in touch if you would like a free psychic reading here on the show. So just pop your question in. Let me know that it's for Weave Your Web. Make sure that it's not super duper urgent because there's no set schedule for the show, and I'll answer that on the show for you too. I hope you enjoyed the spooky Spesh. I hope it didn't spook you too much. And I'll see you next time. Go power!
The onion is a tuberous vegetable and is a member of the genus Stinkis delicioso. It was highly prized by the ancient Egyptian pharaohs and their friends and cousins. They cause watering of the eyes and rubefaction of the skin, but it is very, very delicious. Onions, onions, la la la. Onions, onions, ha ha ha. Do 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 do. Onions, onions, la la.